Normal conditions expected after 10:04 this morning. And on the trains, cross-country is disrupted in north-east Scotland and around Gloucester. And the Elizabeth line is disrupted between Hayes and Harlington and Heathrow Terminal 4. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I will show on-day release from the Stormtrooper factory in Drusillus Park in the south of England. And can you guess who I'm here to see? No, it's not this old grey grizzly chap. In fact, regular viewers of the show will know that I am Britain's biggest beaver lover. And it turns out I'm not the only one. Yes, a new rewilding campaign has been launched, and up and down the country, people are coming out to support it. So I'm here to find out more. Mark, are you the beaver expert here at Drusillus?
I guess I could be. I'm the zoo manager, so I'm the most senior figure in the zoo. I've been working in zoos for over 34 years. So my responsibility is the management and the welfare of the plus 800, 900 animals that we have in the park.
All right, well, that's a lot of animals, but tell me, please, about your beaver.
So the beavers are particularly special. We have had beavers in the collection for 35, 40 plus years. They're hugely popular with our visitors. They're hugely popular within our industry. Professionals alike like to come to Drusillus to see the beavers.
Very exciting. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
for that.
Thanks a lot.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Thursday the 12th of February, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, things are getting better for Manchester United on the pitch, but off the pitch, the Prime Minister has demanded an apology from the club's co-owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, for saying this.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised.
The benefits of investment and growth must be built and felt in every part of our United Kingdom.
The Chancellor's promised growth in her budget. This morning they've missed their growth goal for the end of 2025. So, was the Health Secretary Wes Streeting right when he said in that private email to Lord Mandelson, there's no growth strategy?
And tackling knife crime. Children caught with knives face mandatory mentoring and schooling in today's government new plan. Not perhaps the strongest deterrent.
Hopeless.
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle did not give a full account of his actions.
Another pitiful excuse as Number 10 admits that Keir Starmer nominated his former Communications Secretary Matthew Doyle for a period despite knowing he'd backed a paedophile Labour councillor. Last week, of course, he said Lord Mandelson didn't tell him the whole truth either.
Had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
Well, farmers are in the news again because a new campaign launches this morning encouraging farmers to break the silence on mental health.
The Brexit vote was a fair, democratic expression, and I will always respect that.
But will he? Fresh fears today that we're cosing up to the EU as the Chancellor says they're up for closer ties with Europe.
Well, Andrew, I don't know if you can call it growth if it's 0.1%.
No, and in the last...
The margin of error.
The previous quarter, it was 0.2, and I think the previous quarter, it was zero growth. And the whole strategy of this government, the Chancellor said she will defined by growth. Well, that's her definition, and that's her record. They failed miserably, and we're streeting in that leaked email to try to show that he's not in the thrall to Lord Manderson, said there is no strategy for growth. Clearly he's right.
Absolutely. There's so many factors feeding into it as well, aren't there? The interest payments that we pay on our debt have ballooned.
Yep.
That's not Rachel Reeves' fault, but higher taxes on employment, raising the national insurance threshold, some of the things that have kept inflation high, they are all the direct consequence of this government's policies. And
the huge amount of net zero green taxes that we're paying every month in our fuel bills. People haven't got the money to spend to boost the economy.
And although net migration has dropped, it's still much higher than historical levels. So once you divide that growth by the number of new people who've come into the country, there's probably no growth at all.
As ever, tell us what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories. A 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent in northwest London. The co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has claimed the UK has been colonised by immigrants. The Prime Minister responded to the comments, branding them as offensive and wrong, and has called for him to apologise. Canadian police have named the suspect in the British Columbia school shooting as 18-year-old Jesse Van Roostelaar. Deputy Police Commissioner Dwayne MacDonald gave an update.
We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
The UK economy grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year, the official figures from the ONS say. In response, Chancellor Rachel Reeves says Labour has the right plan to build the UK economy. And those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Well, it's caused a hell of a storm, and astonishingly, the Prime Minister has waded into it. I think we know why he's waded into it, Miriam, because he's desperate for anything to distract from the new controversy over his peerage for Matthew Doyle, a mate of a paedophile, got sent to prison for being a paedophile, and yet he still gave him a peerage. What was he thinking of, the Prime Minister? But he's waded into the controversy over Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He is the co-owner of Manchester United. He's a billionaire. He owns a company called Ineos. It's one of our great business success stories. And he said, he had the temerity to say, Britain has been, quote, colonised by immigration. Take a listen and see if you agree with him.
You can't afford, you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, the UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Well, the Prime Minister felt compelled to respond to these comments. He called them offensive and wrong, and he's called for Sir Jim Ratcliffe to apologise.
Interestingly, GB News' US correspondent, Stephen Edgerton, tweeted, you know what's funny is that the left call immigration reverse colonisation. They even write poems about it and put it on London Underground. They view migration as a punishment for empire.
Isn't that interesting? So when some people use that language of colonisation, that's fine and politically correct, and when other people do it, it should be condemned. I mean, look, Jim Ratcliffe, some of what he said was clumsy. He got his figures all wrong in terms of the population of this country. That is true. But nevertheless, when people are feeling so out of touch with the government in terms of how much immigration we've had without any consent, the fact that small boats keep coming, it seems very politically inept of the Prime Minister to launch in on this particular issue.
And we should recall the Prime Minister, for once, you and I probably agreed with him when he made that speech where he talked about a foreign country, Britain.
Yeah, I mean, an island of strangers.
An island of strangers.
Right.
And that was allowed to be unchecked for 3 days. Then he withdrew it and said he hadn't known what was in his speech, hadn't read it in advance. But a lot of people actually knew what it resonated with what he was saying. And now, but I think he's just using Jim Ratcliffe's comments as an excuse to distract from his massive political problems domestically. And I'm sorry, as you say, he's got his figures wrong, Ratcliffe, but I think what he said is clumsy. We're going to talk to Chris Blackhurst, who knows all about Manchester United and Jim Ratcliffe, because he's the author of The World's Biggest Cash Machine, Manchester United. Chris, good morning to you.
Hi, Andrew. Hi.
Now, Labour MPs were quick to say, without migrants, Manchester United's first 11 would be somewhat depleted, as with the substitutes bench. But that's not really what he was saying.
No, it wasn't. But look, the unfortunate thing about what Jim Ratcliffe said was that by getting his facts wrong, he gave ammunition to people who said he was just plain wrong and shouldn't have said those things. I'm really quite well. I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised, because Jim Ratcliffe does have a habit of firing from the hip. And all I can say is I just hope that when he's running Ineos and Manchester United, he's more accurate about his numbers and his figures.
Maybe his footballers should be more accurate in front of the goal as well.
They're doing quite well
so
this season.
They might do even better, but although they are doing a lot better.
They're doing much better this season, aren't they? My youngest son is a massive Man United fan, so I'm sure.
But you see, the truth is that, you know, if you took the immigrants out of last night's team, there'd be three players on the pitch and 2 on the bench.
But I suppose
Manchester United has a proud record of you know, being multicultural, etc., etc. And you know, for Jim Ratcliffe, who spent a long time living in Monaco, who was a tax exile, I'm not sure if it's definitely not the wisest thing for him to have said.
I think people will understand his sentiment. There is a lot of concern about mass immigration, the speed of change, the lack of democratic consent. Sure. But I take your point. He was not accurate with his language. Is there a problem when politics and football get mixed together?
Yes, and actually, I'd actually go a bit further than that. There's always been a problem when business people sort of dip into politics. The best advice, the best PR advice a lot of business people receive is stay out of politics. Leave politics to the politicians. He's a businessman. He's also in sport. He would have been far better advised to stay away because it's divisive. Look, it is entirely divisive. He's inflamed Labour, as you've said. He's given Keir Starmer probably a welcome distraction from everything else that's going on. He would have been far better off not saying anything. As it is, he's entered a big row. It's also strange because he wants to build a new stadium in Manchester. He wants public support for that. He wants government support for that. Well, this isn't the best way of getting government support. So, you know, I'm baffled really as to why he's done this and what he thinks he's doing.
Just remind people, actually, Chris, because I still found that rather staggering to read, that Jim Ratcliffe, who is a billionaire, thinks the taxpayer should in some way be involved in investing in a new football stadium for Manchester United. Look,
yeah, it's not so much that he doesn't want they're not seeking the taxpayers' money to build the actual stadium, but they certainly need taxpayers' money for all the infrastructure around the stadium.
Right.
I mean, it's a brand new stadium. It'll need roads, railways. So yeah, but that's a huge amount of money. They're also going to shift an awful lot of work and factories and things that are there already away. That's going to cost, and obviously they need planning permission.
Right.
It's a very odd thing to say. I mean, he's got the support of Andy Burnham. Whether he's got the support of Andy Burnham this morning, I'm not sure.
Now, the media has focused in on this word colonise. That is the triggering word here. But Ratcliffe's broader points were about the state of the economy, and he was talking about immigration in that context, alongside the number of people who are out of work on benefits, and talking about really the general state of the British economy. We've had the figures today, growth just 0.1% last year. He does have a point about our economic situation, doesn't he?
Yeah, look, he has a point. Growth is very slow. I mean, there are, and I know you find this hard to believe, there are some green shoots, but it's very, very slow. I was with a group of business people last night who were simply moaning like mad that these were people in the property sector and house builders. The government set this target for building new houses. They're not being built. Nothing is being done. And that isn't really, look, if I can be candid here, that isn't the fault of immigrants. It's not the fault of business people. It is the fault of the government. The government and the Whitehall machine are incredibly slow. Nothing is moving. We cannot get anything done. Jim Ratcliffe he runs Manchester United in Manchester. We still haven't built a railway there that we're supposed to be building for decades now. This country is literally grinding to a halt. Everything is too slow. Nothing is getting done.
Well, Chris Blackhurst, on that cheery note, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That's Chris Blackhurst.
He's the author of the world's biggest cash machine, Manchester United. And what do you think? Do you agree with Jim Ratcliffe about colonisation and the effects of rapid immigration in this country? Or do you think a tax exile him should keep out of it? What do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Well, still ahead, find out about the loan that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's family gave him to pay off his sex accuser, Virginia Giuffre. But up next, we're going to tell you about the Mind Your Head campaign, which wants to provide support for struggling British farmers. Really important work, so don't miss it.
But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of our top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst it's perhaps not as unsettled as it was this time last week across much of southern Europe, there's heavy rain, there's strong winds to watch out for. Lots of wet weather across Spain and Portugal through tomorrow and across southern parts of France. Some hill snow mixed in with this. Tomorrow actually looks largely dry across much of Italy, but that wet weather will feed its way eastwards, and currently across Greece and Cyprus there's heavy thundery rain around, and some of that will continue as we go into the weekend. Elsewhere, some dry weather for many.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
First of all, let's get a grounding here. What makes Scotch Scotch?
Well, first of all, and most importantly, Scotch whisky must be made and aged here in Scotland, but it goes beyond that. So, for example, it must be aged in oak barrels here for a minimum of 3 years. It can't contain any added flavourings. It must have a minimum strength of 40%. Quite a long list of requirements that makes Scotch whisky unique to Scotland.
And of course, it must be delicious in every glass and every tasting, doesn't it? Now, around the world, you know, we hear about fakes, we hear about counterfeits. How do people take advantage of Scotland? We see a lot of Scottish-style whiskies out there, and that's where you come in.
Well, absolutely. So the Scotch Whisky Association, on behalf of the industry, is there to protect the geographical indication Scotch whisky. So sometimes we're dealing with products that are called Scotch whisky when they're not. For example, they've not been aged. In other places, people are trying to take advantage of our culture. They might be using tartan, they might be showing bagpipers, using the words Glen, Mook, all these sort of things to try and confuse people into thinking that what they're drinking is Scotch when it certainly isn't.
Now, it's quite common. We see, obviously, a lot of us go on holiday and we see bottles of whisky and we want to bring them home. Sometimes they even look unusual, and that's why we want to, people want to bring them home. But if somebody thinks that they're bringing home not the genuine article of an established distillery, what kind of things are they looking out for?
Well, first of all, I can reassure everyone that if you're buying your Scotch whisky from a normal retail channel, duty-free, then the chances of coming across a fake are tiny, infinitesimal, because they have very strong controls. And it's also worth noting that all brands of Scotch whisky must be verified by UK Customs.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 11 minutes to 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
New research from the Farm Safety Foundation shows farmers' mental well-being has fallen to its lowest point in 4 years.
In 2024, 47 farmers sadly died by suicide in England and Wales, which has sparked wider discussion about the mental health crisis in farming.
Stephanie Barclay is the charity manager at the Farm Safety Foundation and joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
When the Prime Minister was giving evidence before MPs just before Christmas, an MP challenged him about the fact some older farmers were contemplating suicide because they feared the impact on the family estate of the inheritance tax changes by this government. Is that a factor in these suicide figures?
It may be one of the concerns facing farmers, but when Somerset farmers are looking out their windows and seeing their fields flooded right now, that is the most important thing that they're thinking of. The crops that they have planted are lying rotting in the fields based on the rain. But this is what farmers face all the time, that long hours, isolation, weather uncertainty, and it could be just one extra factor that leads them to tip them over the edge, taking somebody that is struggling with their mental health to somebody that has suicidal thoughts.
And Stephanie, farming consistently has higher levels, sadly, of suicide than I think most other occupations. I've just had a quick look at the numbers. It seems pretty consistently between about 50 and 60 deaths each year, going back as far as I can see records. Is it this uncertainty, this unpredictability about the job, you think, that really feeds into poor mental health?
Absolutely, Miriam. The problem is that farmers have so many things that are completely out of their control. What's happening in terms of the weather, the prices that they're getting paid for their goods at the farm gate, and also the impact of the decisions that are made on their bottom line. And remember, this is not a profession, it's a way of life for many people. It is tough work, it is grit, it is determination, and actually those things that keep the industry moving is also what keeps a lot of farmers silent for far too long.
What is the answer? Because there's nothing you can do about the weather.
No, there's nothing we can do about the weather, but our answer and the campaign is all about raising awareness of the struggles that farmers face, not just among the community, but actually to the larger public audience, to understand that when they sit down to eat 3 times a day, there is somebody to thank for that. We need to continue supporting, backing British farming, because the foods that we produce in this country are of the highest standard in the world. They don't cost a lot in terms of air miles. They're going right back into the economy. So the best thing that we can do is support our farm shops, look for the packaging that shows that our foods are from this country, and actually be patient when you think about farmers. They are working really hard. You know, 44% of farmers between the ages of 40 and 65 work more than 81 hours a week. And often they do not break even. So these are things, we're not talking about whinging farmers here. We're talking about people that have real lives. So it's that thought, it's the consideration and the appreciation for the people that clear the roads when it starts to snow, that take down those trees when they've fallen, that cut those hedges. This is what farmers do. They're also the 5th emergency service.
Stephanie Barclay, thank you so much for talking to us this morning. Stephanie Barclay is the charity manager at the Farm Safety Foundation.
It's a worry, isn't it?
It
and
is.
I think it's another sign, as Stephanie's put a finger on it, we've got to, if we can, buy English, buy British. When you're in your supermarket or in your greengrocers, buy British products because their margins really are terrible. We know that they're selling milk virtually at a loss.
Yeah, and like you said, we can't control the weather. That's never going to happen, but the other things could be made better. The other thing I wonder about as well is loneliness, because farms, by definition, are very isolated, aren't they? Exactly, could be 2 or 3 miles from the nearest house, and they have far less support and neighbourly encouragement, probably, than people in towns and cities.
Absolutely. Why didn't the Prime Minister talk about that rather than attacking Jim Ratcliffe?
Well,
I've had an interesting email from Beverley in Bromsgrove. It says, Starmer should go to parts of Birmingham if we don't believe we've been colonised. I note that the Prime Minister in question still thinks Robert Jenner was lying when he said there are no white faces in Birmingham. Remember when Jenner got into trouble for that?
Yes, I do, at the Tory conference.
But it was, we know the sentiment he was making.
Exactly. Well, if you've been affected by anything you've heard today, you can go to the Samaritans website, samaritans.org, or find your nearest branch. But we'll be back very shortly with lots more news after the break.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. I've said this before quite recently, but there will be plenty of wet weather around for many of us, albeit a bit of sunshine in some places too. We're starting the day on quite a cloudy note. There's a band of rain running from Northern Ireland through Wales towards some central southern parts of England, and there's also showery bursts of rain coming in from the east across parts of northeast England and eastern Scotland as well. But away from these areas, there could be some sunshine breaking through towards the southwest and also across some northern parts of Scotland. Here we do also have some colder air, so temperatures are only getting to highs in the mid-single figures really, but towards the southwest could just about get into double figures in a few places yet again. So a cold feel for sure as we go towards the end of the day across Scotland. There will also be a fair few showers coming in, and with that cold air, well, those showers are going to quite readily fall as sleet or snow over modest higher ground. Further south, we have a wet picture through this evening across Northern Ireland and also across northern England. Also hill snow likely here over the Pennines northwards. I'm expecting a fair few centimetres of snow to build up as we go through tonight and into tomorrow. And meanwhile, across central southern England and Wales, well, there'll be outbreaks of rain pushing their way through. And that's the thing that we take overnight, really. We have a lot of clouds, some outbreaks of rain, some hill snow across central parts. Southern areas, not really seeing much winteriness, just a few outbreaks of rain. Across the north, it's going to be cold. There'll be a few showers, but also a harsh frost, with temperatures here dropping several degrees below freezing. Most places towards the south holding up above freezing here. Then as we go through tomorrow, well, a fair amount of showery rain, sleet and hill snow across central parts of the UK. Showers continue across some parts of northern and eastern Scotland and northeast England, but actually across the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine to be had, but a chilly feel with temperatures quite suppressed. And even further south, temperatures likely to be a little bit lower than today.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M90, traffic is restricted northbound between Junction 3 and Junction 4 because of stones on the carriageway. In Hertfordshire, the M25 anti-clockwise between Junction 17 and Junction 16 has a broken down vehicle, with 2 of 4 lanes closed and delays of around 50 minutes. Also, the A4232 northbound from St Fagans towards the M4 at Junction 33 has an incident closing a lane. And on the trains, cross-country services are disrupted in north-east Scotland, and the Elizabeth line is disrupted between Hayes and Harlington and Heathrow Terminal 4. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for two people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Thursday, the 12th of February. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Kate.
Well, things are getting better on the pitch for Manchester United, but off it, the Prime Minister has waded in and demanded an apology from the club's co-owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He had the temerity to say this.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised.
A big row breaks out about remarks there by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. But how different are they from the PM saying last year we risk becoming an island of strangers?
The benefits of investment and growth must be built and felt in every part of our United Kingdom.
Well, the Chancellor promised growth in her budget, but this morning Labour have missed their goal for the end of 2025. So was Wes Streeting right when he told Lord Mandelson that there's no growth strategy?
Tackling knife crime? Get this, children caught with knives now face mandatory mentoring and schooling in today's government plan. What sort of deterrent is that?
Well, the government says that more money will be made available, but given the criminal justice system is already a basket case, the education system under severe pressure, will they be able to cope with this new diversion scheme?
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle did not give a full account of his action.
Well, another excuse. Number 10 admits that Sir Keir Starmer nominated the former advisor Lord Doyle for a peerage despite knowing that he backed a paedophile councillor. Last week, he didn't have the full account on Lord Mandelson either.
Had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
Ploughing through pain, a new campaign launches this morning encouraging farmers to break their silence on their mental health issues.
The Brexit vote was a fair, democratic expression, and I will always respect that.
Well, are we in line for a Brexit betrayal? Fresh fears today that we're cozying up to the EU as the government are apparently up for closer ties with Europe.
And I really worry, Miriam, with the Prime Minister in so much trouble with his own backbenchers. One thing he could do to solidify his position would be to look ever closer to the European Union, because 95% of Labour MPs, all the cabinet, all voted to remain in the European Union.
I mean, it does depend what he means, because closer defence cooperation with Europe, better trading links with Europe, absolutely, we should be going down that route. It depends whether we're taking rules from Europe. That's the question, isn't it?
If he takes us back into the customs union, we'll be taking rules without being able to influence them.
Absolutely.
And that would be unforgivable. Tell us what you think, send us your views, post your comments too.
gbnews.com/your-say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Thank you very much and good morning. The top stories. A 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent in northwest London. He's due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court today, according to the Metropolitan Police. The boy had entered a first-floor classroom at the Brent School at lunchtime on Tuesday. He sprayed a substance at a pupil before stabbing a 13-year-old boy. As the suspect fled, he stabbed a 12-year-old in a corridor before running from the building. He was arrested just before 5 o'clock this same evening. Meanwhile, the government has introduced a child knife crime plan following the double stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent. Children caught carrying a knife by the police could be forced to have mentoring sessions as part of government plans to drive down reoffending. Police will refer every child knife possession case to youth justice services, and knife carriers could also be forced to stay in education or training under the plans. Justice Minister Jake Richards spoke to GB News.
Actually, one of the attractions and importance of this policy is we are investing in teams that are multidisciplinary. And what I mean by that, they're able to help children navigate, whether it's a health issue, whether it's an education issue, whether it's a housing issue. They will have someone, an appropriate adult, a professional who's experienced in these matters, helping children navigate some of the difficulties in life which may lead them to crime. Now, that's not to say that we are simply hugging children who carry a knife. Far from it. We have tough sentences for repeat offenders, and if anyone commits an offence with a knife, well, that's of course a completely different kettle of fish. But it's also important to tackle the causes of crime.
In other news, the co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has claimed the UK has been colonised by immigrants.
You can't you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause. It'll cause. Well, the UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
The billionaire called on politicians to show some courage by tackling immigration, welfare dependence and the weak economy. The Prime Minister responded to the comments, branding them as offensive and wrong, and has called for him to apologise. Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has strongly criticised Ratcliffe's comments and says the remarks should be withdrawn. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride spoke to GB News.
That is not a term that I would have used, because I think it sort of conveys some kind of sinister aspect to people coming to our country. But I think that the truth that he is speaking to is nonetheless important and something that people are very concerned about, and that is the level of migration into our country. And that's why at the tail end of the last Conservative government we brought in reforms that have actually seen net migration quite dramatically reducing. But, you know, migration is a concern across our country at the moment, and I think in that sense the sentiments that he was expressing were right, but I would not have used that language.
Elsewhere, the UK economy grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. Figures from the Office for National Statistics show today. Economic growth also increased by 0.1% in December, with the ONS revising down November's figure from 0.3% to 0.2%. In response to this morning's GDP figures, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves says Labour has the right plan to build the UK economy. Canadian police have named the suspect in the British Columbia school shooting as 18-year-old Jesse Van Roostelaar. Deputy Police Commissioner Dwayne McDonald gave an update.
We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
The individual was found dead at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School with what police describe as a self-inflicted injury. 6 people were killed and at least 25 others were injured at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. 2 others, the suspect's mother and stepbrother, were found dead at a nearby home. The motive for the attack is not yet known. Authorities said Van der Roostelaar was born a biological male but identified as a woman. Elsewhere, the United Kingdom will provide Ukraine with more than £500 billion for new defence missiles and systems, the Ministry of Defence has announced. Defence Secretary John Healey said the UK will contribute £150 million for the first time to NATO's prioritised Ukraine requirements list, a programme designed to speed up the country's air defence support. A further 1,000 UK-made lightweight multi-role missiles will be delivered to Ukraine as part of a £390 million deal. The announcement comes as Mr Healey co-hosts meetings in Brussels with NATO defence ministers today. And Nottingham Forest have sacked Sean Dyche as head coach after just 114 days in charge and are looking for their 4th boss of the season. Forest were held to a goalless draw at home by bottom club Wolves yesterday, just 3 points above the Premier League relegation zone with 12 games remaining. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news from me in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates. Lots of chat on emails,
I
Andrew.
suspect there's a lot of people want to have their say on Jim Ratcliffe, and I suspect
You're right.
they're on our side.
You're right with that as well.
I think they might be.
We are inundated with comments. Joanne says, no one should apologise for stating the blindingly obvious.
Yeah.
Starmer shouldn't be asking him to apologise. He should be making him Chancellor of the Exchequer.
And Starmer should be the one apologising for allowing all this mass migration.
Well, that's a good point too. Stephen says Jim Ratcliffe is speaking out for the people and not the Labour Party. Gary says Jim Ratcliffe's comments are divisive, but Gary's Neville's are not. Gary Neville's, I should say. Gary Neville's or not? Yeah, good question. Jim, I assume not Jim Ratcliffe, although he's very welcome to comment, was only expressing his opinion, which lots of people would agree with. He's right about our economy too. And Nick says, the point you're missing, Man U are mostly migrants, but they're all here legally and none are claiming benefits. That is a good point.
Very good point.
In fact, they're probably paying enormous amount of tax, given how much money they earn.
Enormous of tax, because they earn $1 million a week or something,
Exactly.
don't they? Which I think is ridiculous, but that's another matter.
Well, let's bring in Christopher Hope, our political editor. He's in Westminster. Chopper, good morning. Perhaps a clumsy use of words from Jim Ratcliffe, but extraordinary that the Prime Minister is telling him to apologise.
Well, yes, the PM is certainly cross about it, and he's tweeted about it on social media. We're yet to hear from him publicly, of course. He hasn't talked to the press since Thursday last week. But maybe it's a way... Am I being cynical, Miriam? You're a former politician. Maybe it's a way of changing the subject away from the appointment of Matthew Doyle to the House of Lords, the continuing row about Jeffrey Epstein and Peter Mandelson. What the PM says is this: offensive and wrong. Britain is proud, tolerant and diverse country. Jim Ratcliffe should apologise. Again, it comes down to language. In May last year, I was in number 10 Downing Street when the PM described this country risking becoming an island of strangers. That's a phrase used in that famous Enoch Powell speech, the Rivers of Blood speech, back in the early 70s. He said this: nations depend on rules, fair rules. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. It seems to be the word colonised is the one which has triggered his critics. That's a word which the Tories say they wouldn't use. We hear from Sir Mel Stride, he calls that pejorative. But the sentiment behind it, I think, is what people have jumped on. Nigel Farage, for his point, he says Britain has undergone unprecedented mass immigration that has changed the character of many areas in this country. Labour may try to ignore that, but reform won't. So it's a row about language. There's no question. The PM even said last week, he's talked before about this Boris wave of migrants coming here, well over 1 million in one of the most recent years. That could fall to 0 this year because of changes largely brought in by the last Tory government at the back end of their time in power. So it's a debate. certainly some areas of this country do feel they've been taken over by people who have arrived here recently. The word colonise is a loaded term, and that appears to be the word which has triggered so many people.
All right, Chris, that's Chris Hope in Westminster. You just have to go to certain parts of London, Miriam, and it feels like a complete takeover. I think in Tower Hamlets in East London, where my father was from, where it's a Muslim-run council, the council is led by a party called Aspire, and they are all Muslims from Bangladesh.
Absolutely. Well, I think he's definitely touched a nerve with his comments. Well, moving on now. A 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent, north-west London.
GB News Home Security Editor Mark Whitehouse, the latest. Mark, serious times.
Yeah, this 13-year-old boy who was arrested a few hours after the stabbing at this high school in Brent, outside a mosque in northwest London, has been held in custody the last couple of days. He was charged overnight with 1 count of attempted murder, the attempted murder of a 13-year-old boy who was stabbed and seriously injured. Another count of attempted murder of a 12-year-old boy who was stabbed, seriously injured. The spraying of a noxious substance, some kind of insect repellent, on another pupil at this high school, and a further charge, a 4th charge of possessing a lethal weapon, a knife. And he will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court at the Children's Panel Court sometime later this morning in connection with the charges. As far as the investigation is concerned, it's still ongoing. Counter-terrorism police still have control of this investigation. It's not yet been declared a terrorist incident, and indeed sources told me last night that Counter-Terrorism Command detectives are leaning towards a potential motive of a personal grievance. The 13-year-old himself, of course, he's not been named for legal reasons because he's a child, but we're told he is a British national born in the UK. Right. However, the police were asked at the briefing I was at yesterday, what is the ethnicity and the religion of this child, and they wouldn't go there. They wouldn't name, they wouldn't give those details for fear of what they call jigsaw identifying an individual if they were to give those sort of details. So they're not going to go.
In the interest of transparency, just better to get this information.
Well, we are meant to be in an era now where much more in the way of that kind of information is put out there. But they, as I say, they caveated it by saying normally they would, but because of the concerns that they could identify a child at the end of this, they've decided not to do that. But, you know, a very worrying situation. And coming, of course, on the day that the government is launching this initiative aimed at trying to divert young children away from knife crime. If they're caught in possession of knives, bladed articles, then they will go into a diversion programme within the education system. But listen, I don't know how on earth this is going to work. The education system is, you know, struggling beyond belief at the moment. It absolutely is. To burden education, the establishment, teachers with this diversion scheme. They say there'll be more money for it, but, you know, you still have as many staff as you have. And then also the criminal justice system's in complete and utter meltdown at the moment.
Indeed. And there's a question mark about whether education is actually an effective answer in these kind of situations.
Sure it isn't.
Mark, thank you so much for that.
Now up next, find out which political leader comes out on top in a new head-to-head clash poll. You may be surprised by the answer. We'll be going through that more with Andy Williams and Karen Malone.
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk then? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Venice is being invaded by cannibalistic jellyfish with vanishing bottoms, and they're wreaking havoc across the city's fragile lagoon ecosystem. Well, it is indeed Tom's favourite time of the day. Tom Harwood, over to you.
Not many people know this, but the B in GB News actually stands for biology. Marine biology, that is. So welcome to Marine Biology Corner. We're going to have a look at what is a remarkable jellyfish. Let me just set the scene with some water here. And this is known as the warty comb jelly. Some people call it the sea walnut, because this particular jellyfish has basically a pretty stationary lifestyle. It looks like it's almost not moving, but there are some remarkable things about this jellyfish. Number one, it is a hermaphrodite. So let's just sort of, yes, it's a hermaphrodite. It can reproduce by itself and choose whether to use large or small gametes in order to do so. I'll let your imaginations run wild on that. It's also functionally immortal. This jellyfish is one of those sorts of jellyfish that can actually revert back to an early life stage. It can sort of reverse its own puberty and then go through those life cycles again and again and again. Functionally immortal unless something eats it. But perhaps the most concerning thing about this particular jellyfish is it's got a transient anus. Now, what does that mean? That means that when this jellyfish needs to excrete, an anus appears. But then once the excretion is over, the anus just completely disappears again.
GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. It's 19 minutes past 10. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
First, I want to tell you how you can win £10,000 holiday for two with £30,000 tax-free thrown in. Here's how you do it.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British Giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for two people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. So whether you're looking for hotel comfort or on a relaxing river cruise, you'll be able to find the perfect match from over 30 global destinations on offer. And because the holiday is handpicked with you in mind, you know it's going to be perfect. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Your summer can start here, so make sure you don't miss out.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We've got the panel here. Daily Express columnist Karen Malone, who's normally talking before she's asked. The political commentator on the left, Andy Williams. Hello.
Yeah, not about politics, though. We're talking about your birthday.
What are we talking about?
We're going to start. So you don't know, do you? We're going to be talking about Starman yesterday. This ridiculous situation in the Commons where, I mean, he was skewered by Ed Davey and Kemi Badenoch over.
It was appalling performance by
over Lord Doyle. Now, we know this. I mean, Kemi actually, well, it was Ed Davey said, you know, to appoint the friend of one paedophile to the Lords is, he said, it's kind of whatever bad judgment. To do it a second time is catastrophic. And it really is, you know, you can't. And now we know, and Kemi said this in the Commons yesterday, we know that he knew about Doyle's association with this ex-councillor Sean Morton and the fact he'd been convicted of
appalling child offences.
Child abuse. He'd had lots of photographs, appalling photographs of children as young as 10.
Yeah.
So Starmer knew about this because it was on the front page of a newspaper.
Sunday Times.
It was on December the 27th.
Yes.
And it was on the front of the Sunday Times, and he's pretending he didn't know about it. And he had until January the 8th to withdraw the peerage, and he chose not to do it. So this is twice.
I know. And his excuse was Matthew Doyle wasn't truthful. Well, that's what Peter Mandelson wasn't truthful. Does the Prime Minister, former Director of Public Prosecutions, never challenge these?
When it's on the front page of a newspaper, chapter and verse, you can't actually know it. And this is, I mean, I know that all the women there, the Labour women, are actually saying there's a toxic culture, it's a boys' club. It's much more than that, actually. This is. We have a Prime Minister who seems not to be morally repelled by paedophiles or friends.
Oh,
I think
that's a bit far.
Really unfair. I'm sorry.
Of course he is.
Is he repelled? Is he repelled by paedophilia? So why did he kick off against not granting? He didn't want to go ahead with the rape grounds inquiry. Why? Why did he appoint Mandelson, knowing he was the friend of a paedophile? Why has he appointed this guy, friend of a paedophile? This is someone who says, who talks very gaily about having sympathy for the victims of child abuse, but who actually does he? Because if he did, he would not have appointed either of these two men to the Lords, and that's a fact.
I thought when Kemi Badenoch said in the Commons yesterday, bearing in mind the government is a total mess at the moment, bearing in mind Keir Starmer nearly was defenestrated on Monday, it's an open goal for her. And I think to use, was it pedo apologist? Was that the term she used?
Well, they are.
No, they're not. And
What
I think it was beneath her as the leader of the opposition to use a term like that. I really do. And to say that the Prime Minister's not morally repelled by paedophilia, I mean, come on.
Well, why did he appoint two friends of paedophiles to the Lords?
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you why he appointed Peter Mandelson, because he thought it was a risk worth taking. I'm not excusing it, but that is the absolute truth. That's the rationale.
What am I saying? I'm saying the same thing. It was a risk worth taking to save his career, to put Mandelson in the White House, which would help his relationship with Trump.
So Peter Mandelson, we know much more now, but what Starmer knew at the time was that Peter Mandelson had maintained a friendship with a known paedophile. I'm not saying that's OK, and I'm pretty confident if I was in the same position and my friend was
convicted of child sex offences. It should be political extension when you are tarred with association with a paedophile.
Let's cut to what happened yesterday, because I thought the Prime Minister's response to Badenoch was shocking when she said, why did he put Matthew Doyle in the House of Lords, knowing this story was on the front page of the Sunday Times? He said, Matthew Doyle did not tell the truth. I have my head in my hands. That was exactly what he told us about Mandelson. So we had all these months. So did he not think déjà vu? This man goes to prison for possessing vile images of children on his phone. Matthew Doyle campaigned for him in a council election. I asked him, and he said everything was fine. And he believed him. And he's now saying Matthew Doyle didn't tell the whole truth. He's the former Director of Public Prosecutions. As the leader of the SNP said in the Commons, he must be the most... Hang on. The leader of the SNP in the Commons said he must be the most gullible former Director of Public Prosecutions in history. He's right.
But more importantly, you would think that when he knew about what this guy Sean Morton had on his computer was shocking beyond belief.
Absolutely.
Now, Starmer knew about that. So so if he was morally repelled by that, why didn't he act on December the 27th and stop him
We've
getting
got to remember, though, that the people who are guilty of these crimes, and obviously Peter Mandelson and Matthew Doyle, not themselves accused of paedophilia, are unbelievably good at working their way into networks, at predating on people. Now, of course, Keir Starmer shouldn't have pointed them, of course, but we've got to remember that the kind of people who commit these crimes are very, very good at ingratiating them with the rich.
But you still can't get away from the fact that Doyle was a friend with a man who had obscene images of children.
Keir Starmer a paedophile apologist.
No, it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. And I'd say two things. Number one, there's clearly a problem with the way the whole appointment process for ambassadors, for people in the House of Lords. That is a huge issue. I think you could look at any political party who's appointed people who shouldn't have been in the House of Lords to the House of Lords. And the second thing I'd say, and it's a really boring process point and you're not going to like it, but I'm going to say it anyway, do you really think that Keir Starmer is spending more than 10 seconds thinking about whether Matthew Doyle should go into the House of Lords.
Yes, well, he should.
Prime Minister of the biggest economy in the world.
So Tim Allen, who was the comms chief, who walked out this week, was asked by Morgan McSweeney to get to the bottom of Matthew Doyle's relationship with this convicted paedophile.
Sean Moore.
He questioned him, and Tim Allen did a report which the Prime Minister saw, which made quite clear that he kept a relationship up with a convicted paedophile. The Prime Minister still decided to give this man a period. Shocking misjudgment.
Beyond belief.
It is a misjudgment, but it doesn't make him...
After
and also, there is no explanation, because Downing Street yesterday could not explain why he went ahead with that period.
No.
You'd think he would have an explanation. There is none.
I'm not defending Keir Starmer's judgment. I think he's shown bad judgment. No, it doesn't, Andrew.
But it's more than arguing that he's not a paedophile apologist.
Yes,
that is a totally different accusation.
So
it's
what
an
is he
open
then?
goal. He's so Starmer is so broken and finished as Prime Minister. You don't need to go down into the gutter and resort to
You do not appoint people to the highest position, one of the highest positions in the land, give them one of the highest honours in the land, when you know they're friends of a paedophile. You just don't.
If you or anyone else really, truly believes that Keir Starmer doesn't care about paedophilia, as the father of 2 children, as fundamentally a decent man, I mean, come on.
So this is the same father of 2 children.
Hang on, can I jump in again? The website this morning, Politico, says that Labour MPs are now complaining that on the doorstep people are saying we are pedo protectors.
Yeah, because people like Kemi Badenoch and the right-wing press are confecting this.
Oh, please! Oh,
nonsense.
So this is all the right-wing press's fault.
No, I'm not saying it's all the
This is not the people who choose to prevent
the Times have put it on the front. Look at the front page of the Times, which has been very supportive of Labour. The headline is, "This is not a right-wing newspaper. The PM knew his peerage pick had bat sex offender."
That is a factual and perfectly legitimate headline.
Yeah,
what it doesn't say is
Isn't the story here that there are paedophiles who manage to ingratiate themselves in the elites? That has been the case, sadly, for a long time. We can go back to the 70s when you discovered the story about the paedophile information exchange working its way into the left-wing organisation that is now Liberty, that Harriet Harman was part of. You know, unfortunately, there are networks of paedophiles who make their way into political life on both sides. That's the point here.
They do that, but it's up to our politicians not to befriend them.
Both sides have failed in keeping them out of politics, and that should be the big story here.
But the other thing, Andy's just accusing the press here. Thank God for a free press in this country, because this story would have been covered up had it not been for the press.
And I'm not accusing the press of anything. And my point is that using terms like that, people might be bringing it up on the doorstep, but guess what? People on the doorstep aren't right about everything. People on the doorstep are wrong about all sorts of things.
And so are
the general
politicians.
public don't understand lots of things.
So you cannot say that any aspect of what Starmer has done here is right, decent, or is about good judgment. This is about catastrophic judgment, and it's about him not heeding what he already knew about matters in this case.
I think
it's outrageous.
This is a real problem for him with his image with women in particular. We see Harriet Harman, a very long-standing senior Labour politician, saying he needs a deputy prime minister female because it's a boys' club. She says it's a boys' club.
That is about a different issue, which is about how Number 10 has been run by Morgan McSweeney and a handful of male advisors.
We're going to have to leave it there for now. We'll resume hostilities in an hour, but thank you both to our panel. But next, we've got your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Miriam, thank you. The top stories. A 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent in northwest London. Elsewhere, the co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has claimed the UK has been colonised by immigrants. The Prime Minister responded to the comments, branding them as offensive and wrong, and has called for him to apologise. Canadian police have named the suspect in the British Columbia school shooting as 18-year-old Jesse van der Roostelaar. Deputy Police Commissioner Dwayne MacDonald gave an update.
We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
And the UK economy grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year, figures from the Office for National Statistics show. In response, Chancellor Rachel Reeves says Labour has the right plan to build the UK economy. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, coming up next, we're going to be joined by a nurse who was suspended over an alleged breach of a transgender patient's confidentiality.
You couldn't make it up, frankly, which is why you've got to see it. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. I've said this before quite recently, but there will be plenty of wet weather around for many of us, albeit a bit of sunshine in some places too. We're starting the day on quite a cloudy note. There's a band of rain running from Northern Ireland through Wales towards some central southern parts of England, and there's also showery bursts of rain coming in from the east across parts of northeast England and eastern Scotland as well. But away from these areas, there could be some sunshine breaking through towards the southwest and also across some northern parts of Scotland. Here we do also have some colder air, so temperatures are only getting to highs in the mid-single figures really, but towards the southwest could just about get into double figures in a few places yet again. So a cold feel for sure as we go towards the end of the day across Scotland. There will also be a fair few showers coming in, and with that cold air, well, those showers are going to quite readily fall as sleet or snow over modest higher ground. Further south we have a wet picture through this evening across Northern Ireland and also across northern England. Also hill snow likely here over the Pennines northwards. I'm expecting a fair few centimetres of snow to build up as we go through tonight and into tomorrow. Meanwhile, across central southern England and Wales, well, there'll be outbreaks of rain pushing their way through. And that's the thing that we take overnight really. We have a lot of clouds, some outbreaks of rain, some hill snow across central parts. Southern areas not really seeing much winteriness, just a few outbreaks of rain. Across the north, it's going to be cold. There'll be a few showers, but also a harsh frost with temperatures here dropping several degrees below freezing. Most places towards the south holding up above freezing here. Then as we go through tomorrow, well, a fair amount of showery rain, sleet and hill snow across central parts of the UK. Showers continue across some parts of northern and eastern Scotland and northeast England, but actually across the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine to be had, but a chilly feel with temperatures quite suppressed, and even further south, temperatures likely to be a little bit lower than today.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A8 eastbound at Carnbrough, the on and off slips are closed and a signed diversion is in place. In Hull, the A63 eastbound at the junction with the A1166 has a broken down vehicle with one lane closed. In Staffordshire, the A500 southbound between the A527 north and the A5271 is partly blocked after a road traffic collision, causing around 10 minutes of delays. On the trains, the Elizabeth line has disruption between Hayes and Harlington and Heathrow Terminal 4, and Great Western Railway is disrupted on multiple routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
So the Prime Minister, end of an extraordinary week, he will be so glad, Miriam, that the Parliament has gone into recess, because instantly the tension goes down. Although, of course, when MPs go back to their constituency, they're going to get a lot of grief on the doorstep about what's been going on in Westminster.
They are.
But he lives to fight another day. They're off for at least a week. But, of course, next week we have a by-election which will be critical, and it will all, in my view, kick off again.
And it's really interesting looking at what issues cut through, because obviously if you work in news and Westminster like we do, we're aware of all the different stories. But if you look at the Peter Mandelson story, that's had huge cut through with the public.
It really did.
Whereas the Chagos Islands had hardly any cut through, even though a lot of people in Westminster see that as a very important story. But that's why this is so significant, because people are aware of the Peter Mandelson scandal.
But what should be really significant for people is the growth figures today. They've missed their growth target again. What that means is the economy is flatlining. It's dying on its feet. Unemployment is going up every single month. interest rates have come down, admittedly, but inflation went up last month. It's a real worry.
Yeah, so Alistair Heath has written a column in the Telegraph today where he's claiming that people are actually moving to the right on the economy, that more and more people are supporting cutting taxes and cutting spending, which you can kind of understand, but it's still a fraction of people. So 36% of the country still support higher taxes for more spending. 19 support lower taxes and lower spending. So there is a growth in the number of people who think we need tax cuts, but it's still a tiny minority.
And look, on my podcast with Kevin Maguire, we had a fight about Jim Ratcliffe over what he said about migration. I'm not taking lectures from a tax exile. Missing the point. Why are so many people like Jim Ratcliffe leaving the country? He lives in Monaco for tax reasons. He doesn't want to pay because the tax bill in this country is at the highest ever. It's the highest since the Second World War.
Yeah, exactly.
Higher than the tax rate, which was required to rebuild Britain after being flattened during the Blitz.
Absolutely. And I think we had, was it Jonathan Liss on last week saying that people who leave the country because they don't want to pay so much tax aren't patriotic. But I think all of us know that if we were in that position where you're facing losing millions of pounds because of tax and you don't like where the money is going to...
Yeah. If you were confident your hard-earned money was going in to make a better NHS, but you actually
build roads and trains and bridges.
That Wes Streeting has announced extra money for the NHS, and he says waiting lists are falling. But then we discovered in the press last weekend, it's partly because they're paying £3 million to Trust to massage the figures in a certain way.
To knock dead people off the list.
To knock dead people off the list.
Way that they got rid of a few people.
And do people's real-term experience of the NHS, does it feel any better? I ask people who are watching and listening, tell us what you think. You still, I know, when you ring your GP surgery at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I have to get a repeat prescription. I'd forgotten. I rang at 8 o'clock yesterday, 73 in the queue.
Oh, my goodness.
Bang. So down went the phone.
Well, our GP
and that's people waiting for an appointment.
Yeah, that is great. I mean, our GP's got a really good kind of live chat system that works. I think the controversy, though, with the Jim Ratcliffe comments is that he's used the word "we're being colonised," which implies that it's the fault of the immigrants, whereas you might also say that it's actually the fault of governments because we've opened our borders, we've allowed people to come here, we've given out visas, we've given out benefits, we've given out jobs. You can't really blame people for coming in if we've welcomed them. So I think that the controversy is that the word being colonised blames the immigrants, whereas I think some people would say it's fair to complain about mass immigration.
Actually, I would argue that it's a failure of multiculturalism because what it's effectively created is, I would use the word, and I'll get into trouble for it, but I'm going to use it anyway, it's almost created what you might call a ghetto, where you've just got a massive population of Somalis in that part and a massive and then it makes people who were born here, the indigenous population, feel aliens. And that's not right.
Well, that surely is the proper definition of a colony, is when a group moves in and then it expands, but it doesn't integrate necessarily with the local community. So you could almost use it neutrally.
Yeah, if you look at what Jim Ratcliffe said, go to parts of our own cities, go to Birmingham, go to London, go to Manchester, go to Bradford, they have colonised.
Yeah,
they have.
And I don't think we should attach blame to that, apart from perhaps the successive governments.
Well, it's the state has almost encouraged it.
Yeah, well, we have. And I mean, certainly after the war, we asked people from Commonwealth countries to come over to help rebuild Britain. And that was the first time we had kind of any high levels of immigration. But the point is, people are so fed up with talking about this issue and no action on this issue. And here's another example where the row is about a word that one man used rather than what's actually happening.
And the Prime Minister has waded in, Labour MPs have waded in. And let's be honest, brutally honest, about why they've done that, because they're desperate to distract from the ongoing row over why what Peter Manton did or didn't give away when he was a minister and when he was ambassador, and also the latest row about the peer who was a mate of a paedophile, and Starmer gave him the peerage anyway. So that's why Starmer's talking about Jim Ratcliffe, because he thinks it's a distraction. I suspect, you agree with Miriam and I, that actually Jim Ratcliffe may have been a little clumsy with his language, but actually what he said was broadly true.
Well, he's certainly got himself some attention. We can agree on that.
And apparently the football team's doing very well too. Not that I would know.
No, they are. They are quite high in the table this season. He is. I think they did draw their last match, but they had a winning streak before that.
won 5 in a row. The bloke had a haircut.
We'll come back to that.
Yeah.
We've got to move on. So the number of women freezing their eggs to protect their fertility is increasing at huge rates, with a 270% increase in the number of egg freezing cycles between 2019 and 2023.
Yet, concerns have been raised over the risk to egg donors and how the process is advertised.
Well, in response, the House of Commons Women and Equalities Committee have launched an inquiry into egg freezing and donation. And we're joined now by Helen Gibson, who's the founder of Surrogacy Concern UK. She gave evidence, good morning, to the committee yesterday. Helen, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you outline your concerns about this growth in egg freezing and donation?
Yes, well, our particular concern is egg donation, where young women as young as 18 up to the ages of 35 are targeted in adverts, predominantly on social media, but also in public places, for their eggs, for the purposes of donating them to use for older and wealthier people in their fertility treatment. So we're extremely concerned about this because the numbers have been exploding over the last 20 years, and we know have included up to 5,800 women aged between just 18 to 25 between 1991 and 2022. There are significant known complications from egg retrieval when you undergo it, so ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, perforated bowels, abscesses, sepsis, other significant complications. But in the long term, very little remains known about the harms of egg retrieval on women's bodies. It's simply not been studied. Now, we are very concerned because the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority increased the amount of money that women could be paid for their eggs every cycle to £985 per cycle in October 2024. And our own government didn't undertake an impact assessment on that to see how many women from perhaps low-income backgrounds might do this for the money. So we're really worried about it. And Rebecca Paul, the Conservative MP for Reigate, called on the committee to undertake this inquiry. And that's why I presented evidence yesterday.
It's an irony because it's called egg donation, but actually
but it's not,
they're selling the eggs. They're selling the eggs.
So, well, to be clear, it is illegal to pay a woman for her eggs, but this is the ludicrous position in the law. It's illegal to pay a woman for her eggs, and yet we moved from an itemised expenses system in about 2011, where you had to give train tickets and receipts and a form to prove your costs, to just a flat payment in women's bank accounts of £750, now put up to £985. And I said exactly that in the committee yesterday. You can't say it's just compensation, it's not a payment, when after you've gone through egg retrieval, a flat payment amount goes into your bank account by the clinic. We think that women from low incomes are at particular risk here of financial exploitation. And in fact, 4,000 women between 2011 and 2020, over 4,000 women, donated their eggs, and they were from the 3 most deprived deciles of multiple deprivation in this country. So we think this is a real problem of financial exploitation.
And do you have ethical concerns as well, Helen? Because obviously this is genetic material. If these eggs do become babies, then those babies will never know their genetic mother.
That's right. There are huge ethical conundrums with egg donation per se, and we said this in the committee yesterday, that while the framework and the safeguards for egg donation at the moment are wrong, with the adverts, with the minimum age of donors, with the payments, etc., the overall situation is so problematic that to us as women and children's rights campaigners, we can never support it however it's done, because you are splintering motherhood. That's why egg donation in all forms is totally illegal in Germany, because you splinter motherhood across 2 women as you do in surrogacy. So it's very harmful. We think it's dangerous, but it's also giving rise, not just for the concerns of the donor-conceived person, and that should always be centred, as you say, children should always be put first in this, and we don't think that they are. But from a point of view for women, it's coming to be seen that women's bodies are a resource to be mined for the benefit of older, richer people. It's a fundamental power imbalance, because egg donors must always be young, because they have the best quality eggs. Egg donation stops at 35, but you are giving the eggs, or the eggs are being bought by people for thousands of pounds, making profit for clinics out of the sale of human tissue, which we wouldn't allow for kidneys or blood, from egg banks and fertility clinics. And we're seeing increasingly misogynistic content where people are posting videos on social media about access to eggs and their right to buy eggs, and comparing women's eggs to baskets of chickens' eggs. It's really quite monstrous, and it's getting worse. And as the culture grows of, common use for people using and buying eggs, and it is encouraged by fertility clinics who have an interest in making sure that they get live births for their customers, and I call them customers now, not patients, because it's become much more like a service in private fertility medicine. The young women are being sacrificed.
Well, Helen Gibson, thank you so much. Food for thought there, and good luck with your campaign. Helen Gibson from Surrogacy.
Queasy.
It is, when you dig into this, Andrew, it is incredible what's going on. We'll have to cover it again because...
We're crossing live to the Commons, where there is an urgent question being tabled on Lord Mandelson.
As I think the Minister may have done, that it intends to comply fully with the language in the humble address. And I say that, Mr Speaker, because there's been briefing to the press from government sources this week that the government might try to reinterpret the address in some way. For the avoidance of doubt, were that to happen, the government would have to return to this House for another vote. Last week, the Prime Minister told us the process would have integrity because it was being led by the Cabinet Secretary, and that any criticism or denigration of the Cabinet Secretary would not be right. This week, the political forces in Number 10 have been briefing that Sir Chris Wormald is to be replaced. What a turnaround. So will the Minister reassure the House that any change in the Cabinet Secretary will not delay disclosure or publication of the documents which the House has required? There are a number of further questions that I'll put quickly to the Minister, Mr Speaker. First, has the government completed its scoping exercise, and if not, by when does it intend to do so? Second, where the government proposes to release material to the Intelligence and Security Committee rather than directly to the House, will it provide public updates to the House that this has been done? Third, in respect of documents withheld at the request of the Metropolitan Police, will the government tell us the precise legal mechanism being relied upon and commit to publish these documents in full when the police no longer request them to be withheld? Fourth, will ministers publish a Keeling schedule-style register of withheld or delayed documents, setting out the category, the reason for non-disclosure, and the expected release date for each? There are strong precedents for this. Fifth, at the dispatch box last week, the Minister told me he would write to myself and the member for Skipton about the Palantir contract. He's not yet done so. Please will he confirm that he will this week? Last, and separately, will the Minister commit to publishing all documentation relating to the nomination of Matthew Doyle as a peer? This is now a matter of acute public interest. I will sit down, Mr Speaker. The Minister will appreciate that confidence in this government's integrity is very low. I hope he will comply in full.
Minister.
Can I thank the right honourable gentleman for that? Let me try and rattle through those questions. Firstly, and most importantly, we will comply fully. Made that clear in the House. So the government accepted both the principle and content of the motion. We'll comply fully on it. There is a large, this touches on the scoping question, there is obviously a large amount of material potentially in play here, much broader than other humble addresses. That's not a criticism, that's just a factual observation of how long it's going to take to get through this. So the scoping has begun, and we are working, the Cabinet Office is working through that scoping material. As I say, I will update the House as soon as I can with furthermore. We hope to publish the first tranche of this when the House comes back from recess. But as I say, that is being worked through on scoping. The conversations with the Metropolitan Police, as I say, are absolutely, as the Speaker pointed out, have the primacy of this place at heart. But we also, as you would expect, not want to prejudice an ongoing police investigation. So we are just working our way through that. With regard to the Cabinet Secretary that the right honourable gentleman mentioned, obviously it wouldn't be appropriate for a Cabinet Office Minister to talk about the Cabinet Secretary or individual. Well, thankfully, I'm no longer an advisor, and I'm a Cabinet Office Minister, so It would not be appropriate for a Cabinet Office Minister to talk about the Cabinet Secretary. But let me reassure the House that the Cabinet Office is working hard on this. It is working diligently to do so. That process is ongoing, so any speculation around that does not affect the process that is going through. On Palantir, the right honourable gentleman mentioned this. I did commit to write to him. I have spoken to officials about that. I promise we will get that to him. Obviously, there was an urgent question on this as well. I think that the MOD took that updated, but I promise I will come back. I will come back to him on that. And finally, he touched on Lord Doyle. Obviously, that is outside the scope of this humble address and outside the scope of the papers. So the urgent question on that does not touch upon that.
Sarah Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliament is rightly focusing its attention on Peter Mandelson, but along with accusations of other heinous crimes, during his time as trade envoy to Singapore, Vietnam, China and Hong Kong in 2010, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor passed extremely sensitive material on to Epstein and his accomplices. Isn't it time that, as well as Peter Mandelson, we called on Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor to answer to both the police and to Parliament?
Can I thank you for that? Look, everyone in this House has been sickened and dismayed at the revelations from all of the Epstein papers that have come through, and in relation to what the Honourable Lady just said. Obviously, that is outside the scope of this humble address, and that is a matter for the palace to respond to.
Minister, Liberal Democrats spokesperson Bobby Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The events of recent weeks have diminished people's faith in politics substantially. It was already at an all-time low, and it's confirmed the worst of people's suspicions about how everything works and punctured the optimism of those who believed in better. Now, at the centre of all this are the victims, and their bravery is twofold. Firstly, in retelling their trauma, and secondly, in taking on the world's most powerful men and all those who aided and legitimised them. Now, the humble address passed by this place now stands as a test of transparency and a test of parliamentary authority. And I think people will demand answers, and they deserve answers swiftly. They will not stand for endless consultation, reviews and deliberation. And so can the government confirm when will the government bring forward legislation so that Peter Mandelson's peerage can be revoked? What is their deadline for releasing the necessary files? And who in the government will be held responsible if that deadline is not met?
Can I thank him for that? And he's absolutely right that it should be victims that remain at the heart of this. In answer to his question on legislation to strip Lord Mandelson of his peerage, that will come forward, and broader reform of the process for the House of Lords and removal, that will come forward again as soon as possible. It will be in government time, as I committed to last week, and we will bring that forward after the recess. In terms of who's accountable, obviously it's a Cabinet Office matter, so the Cabinet Officer are accountable, but obviously the Prime Minister is accountable for this as well. But as I say, we will comply fully with the motion, and we will publish it, and we will publish material as soon as we can.
Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just over a week or so ago, I expressed my horror at what had passed and was very shocked that you couldn't remove a peerage from someone who had brought the other place into disrepute. So I'm very pleased to see how swiftly the government moved on bringing in legislation to do so. But does the Minister agree with me that full compliance with regards to transparency of records as soon as possible is vitally important to ensure we rebuild trust in politics and politicians?
Minister.
Yes, absolutely do. And as I say, we absolutely will comply fully, and we will comply as quickly as possible. And I also, on a side issue, completely share her point about the removal process for the Lords. I think it's, for the other place. I think it's inexplicable that that's still the case. And the sooner we can update that, the better.
So Christopher Cho.
Mr. Speaker, does the Minister share my concern about the revelations relating to the connection between Mandelson and the Chinese motor manufacturer BYD, which now says that the United Kingdom is the largest destination for its electric vehicles? Will he also answer as to whether he is preventing the Secretary of State for Energy and Net Zero from disclosing the conduct which he had and the conversation which he had when he visited China last year and signed agreements which remain secret as far as this House is concerned?
Minister.
Thank you. I mean, look, there's no part of the revelations around Lord Mandelson that I'm not dismayed at and appalled at. So that includes all of that. On the broader point about that he raises there, I'm afraid I'm not across the detail of that, but that's one for the Secretary of State team to reply to.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There continues to be significant public interest in the £240 million Palantir Technologies government contract. Could the Minister confirm if any government ministers were present at the Palantir celebration party yesterday, and if so, who? And can he commit also to ensuring that all materials and records relating to this contract award decision are published?
Minister.
I have no idea is the answer to the first part of her question. And the second part of her question, as I have now promised the honourable gentleman twice, we will give a written reply and a full reply about the Palantir contract that concerns the Cabinet Office as soon as possible.
Mark Pritchard.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Public confidence in this process is absolutely vital. And whilst the Intelligence and Security Committee is fiercely independent, is it not a matter of fact that it is dominated by Labour peers and Labour MPs, and the chairman is appointed by a Labour Prime Minister? But on a point of detail on the Cabinet Office involvement, how will this inquiry avoid a conflict of interest between the Cabinet Office employees who staff the ISC and the Cabinet Office themselves, and also on the legal advice from the Cabinet Office? Would that not conflict with the Cabinet legal advisers to the ISC? Is it not the case that the Intelligence and Security Committee should have its own budget to recruit its own independent legal advisers, separate from the Cabinet Office?
Minister.
Can I thank him for that? I mean, as I said in the House last week, and I think in response to a question from the former Attorney General, the full resourcing will be given to the ISC to do that. And the Cabinet Office and the ISC, I take his point about how you work that through between the two and between the two teams. That is being worked out very closely with the ISC and the Cabinet Office at the moment, and I'm confident that can be resolved. I would just point out, though, he pointed about the political composition of the ISC. I think it's fair to say that no one in this House really would want an implication that the ISC was not impartial, responsible, and entirely qualified to do this, and that's why I think it was an important addition last week that we had the ISC stated in there. So I think it's important to have that on the record.
Mr.
Speaker, I'm pleased that the Prime Minister has recognised that he must do more to strengthen standards in public life, including by enhancing vetting for political appointments, but also a broader review of the lobbying system. Would the Minister care to explain a bit more about what the government is planning to address when it comes to lobbying of MPs and public officials?
Minister.
Can I thank you for that? The Chief Secretary set this out to the House on Monday, and further detail will come forward soon. But I do think this is an important part, again, of restoring trust, and that it can't just be us reacting to the specific of the Mandelson revelation. It needs to be a much broader position about how lobbying, how transparency of our politics is carried out, because our politics, and this shouldn't be a political point because this is all governments and all parties at different points. Our politics is at a low point in public trust at the moment.
The House of Commons, an urgent question tabled by the Tories still making mischief on Peter Mandelson's appointment as ambassador, with the continuing reverberations over the police investigation.
It's been the big story this week. Well, it is now 11 o'clock. On Thursday, the 12th of February, we're live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And things are getting better for Manchester United on the pitch, I'm told, but off it, the Prime Minister is demanding an apology from the club's co-owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He said this:
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised.
The benefits of investment and growth must be built and felt in every part of our United Kingdom.
Well, the Chancellor promised growth in her budget, but this morning Labour missed their growth goal for the end of 2025. So was Wes Streeting right when he told Lord Mandelson in those now revealed text messages that there is no growth strategy?
And our very own Patrick Christie's heading north to talk to the people of East Durham about the challenges they face in the region. He'll be doing that all day here on GB News.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I am here in East Durham. I'm going to be doing hits all day, but also my show live from a Great British Booze at 9 to 11 p.m, speaking to local people about their issues, real people out in the real world, in places that the mainstream media, the establishment media, has forgotten about. Well, not us here at GB News.
And a new idea to tackle knife crime. Children caught with knives face mandatory mentoring and schooling in today's government plan. Perhaps not going to be the strongest deterrent.
Mr. Speaker, Matthew Doyle did not give a full account of his actions.
Oh dear, yet another excuse, as number 10 admits that Keir Starmer nominated his former adviser Matthew Doyle for a peerage despite knowing he supported a paedophile Labour councillor. Last week, he gave a similar account about Lord Mandelson.
Had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
And ploughing through pain, a new campaign launches this morning encouraging farmers to break the silence on mental health.
Yes, as new figures show that farmers' mental health is at a 4-year low, the challenges of farming in Britain really proving to be quite difficult at the moment, despite being surrounded by nature and animals, like these cows here.
Did you notice he had very good wellies on?
Yes, definitely needed.
You'd need them.
Hasn't it rained every single day this year somewhere in the UK?
It's somewhere in Scotland. It's rained for 41 days without break. 41 days.
It is terrible for farmers. It really is.
Tell us what you think. Send your views, post your comments by visiting
gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's the news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Miriam, thank you very much. The top stories. The co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has claimed the UK has been colonised by immigrants.
You can't afford, you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
The billionaire called on politicians to show some courage by tackling immigration, welfare dependence and the weak economy. The Prime Minister responded to the comments, branding them as offensive and wrong, and has called for him to apologise. Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has strongly criticised Ratcliffe's comments and says the remarks should be withdrawn. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride spoke to GB News.
It's not a term that I would have used because I think it sort of conveys some kind of sinister aspect to people coming to our country. But I think that the truth that he is speaking to is nonetheless important and something that people are very concerned about, and that is the level of migration into our country. And that's why at the tail end of the last Conservative government we brought in reforms that have actually seen net migration quite dramatically reducing. But, you know, migration is a concern across our country at the moment, and I think in that sense the sentiments that he was expressing were right, but I would not have used that language.
In other news, a 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent in northwest London. He's due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court today, according to the Metropolitan Police. The boy had entered a first-floor classroom at the Brent School at lunchtime on Tuesday, sprayed a substance at a pupil before stabbing a 13-year-old boy. As the suspect fled, he stabbed a 12-year-old in a corridor before running from the building. He was arrested just before 5 o'clock the same evening. That's as the government has introduced a child knife crime plan following the double stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent. Children caught carrying a knife by the police could be forced to have mentoring sessions as part of government plans to drive down reoffending. Police will refer every child knife possession case to youth justice services, and knife carriers could also be forced to stay in education or training under the plans. Justice Minister Jake Richards spoke to GB News.
And actually, one of the attractions and importance of this policy is we are investing in teams that are multidisciplinary. And what I mean by that, they're able to help children navigate, whether it's a health issue, whether it's an education issue, whether it's a housing issue. They will have someone, an appropriate adult, a professional who's experienced in these matters, helping children navigate some of the difficulties in life which may lead them to crime. Now, that's not to say that we are simply hugging children who carry a knife. Far from it. We have tough sentences for repeat offenders, and if anyone commits an offence with a knife, well, that's of course a completely different kettle of fish. But it's also important to tackle the causes of crime.
Elsewhere, Canadian police have named the suspect in the British Columbia school shooting as 18-year-old Jesse Van Roostelen. Deputy Police Commissioner Dwayne McDonald has given an update.
We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
The individual was found dead at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School with what police describe as a self-inflicted injury. 6 people were killed and at least 25 others were injured at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. 2 others, the suspect's mother and stepbrother, were found dead at a nearby home. The motive for the attack is not yet known. And authorities have said Van Roostelen was born a biological male but identified as a woman. The UK economy grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. The ONS shows that economic growth also increased by 0.1% in December, with the ONS revising down November's figure from 0.3% to 0.2%. In response to this morning's GDP figures, the Chancellor says Labour has the right plan to build the UK economy. The United Kingdom will provide Ukraine with more than £500 billion for new defence missiles and systems, the Ministry of Defence has announced. Defence Secretary John Healey said the UK will contribute £150 million for the first time to NATO's prioritised Ukraine requirements list, a programme designed to speed up the country's air defence support. A further 1,000 UK-made lightweight multi-role missiles will be delivered to Ukraine as part of a £390 million deal. The announcement comes as Mr Healey co-hosts meetings in Brussels with NATO defence ministers today. Finally, in sport, Thomas Tuchel has signed an extension to his contract as England head coach through to the end of the home European Championship in 2028. The Football Association announced today the German was set to stay on, with his previous deal only running until the end of this summer's World Cup in North America. Tuchel said, "I'm very happy and proud to extend my time with England." The FA said the agreement with Tuchel would provide clarity and full focus on the World Cup, in the hope the extension will silence talk around his future, which could otherwise prove a distraction. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More news from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3645 and €1.1482. The price of gold, £3,713.47 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 10,504 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Hello, good morning and welcome. You're watching and listening to Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Our very own Patrick Christie's up north. He's talking to the people of East Durham about the challenges faced in that region.
Well, the area consists of higher crime rates and more people on universal credit compared to the rest of England. And Patrick joins us now from a very wet East Durham. Patrick, good morning. Lovely to see you. Tell us what people have been saying to you so far this morning.
Right, OK, well, look, obviously it's barbecue weather here in East Durham. Now, I'm about to go and meet my first guest. I've only just got here. It's a fascinating case study, this. 74 years this seat has been Labour. The local MP nominated Jeremy Corbyn for the Labour leadership, is chairman of the Labour Friends of Palestine. But the tide is turning. 95% chance, apparently, of this seat going reform. I've come to speak to local people about why these things are going on here. What are the issues that are affecting them? And we are about to go inside the house of a guy called Pip Fallow, who I'm hoping he's going to let us in because it's a bit cold and wet out here. And he wrote a book called Dragged Up Proper, and I want to talk about deindustrialisation. Pip, how are you, mate?
Hello, Patrick. How are you doing? Coming out the room.
So, come on in. Right, thank you very much. I was worried you were going to leave me standing there for a second. Then I was going to be a bit too chilly. Right, thank you for letting us into your lovely house.
It's a pleasure.
Can we get stuck straight into it, please? What are the biggest issues affecting this particular area?
Employment. 100%. The lack of industry. We've got a workforce willing to go, a ready workforce. The Learning Institutes have been left. They're a bit of a legacy from the industrial days that we had. But the best figures that we can get on our campaign to try and reindustrialise the places is about 156 people chasing every engineering job that come out of the colleges. We just, we've got the workforce, we just haven't got the industry to soak them up. And how that personifies itself into people's lives is, people are packing bags and leaving the area. We're getting a brain drain. People want a better life for the children than they had, and they can't really supply that for the first time around here.
When you say reindustrialise, what does that mean in practice? The viewers and listeners watching this now are not from this area. What would that look like here in East Durham?
Like it used to look. If you read my book, which I just wrote, this book about my life. It's a sort of memoir. I've gone from 40 years ago of being in really happy community where everybody had fulfilment and enjoyed working. Everybody had purpose in their lives. And we've ended up in a situation where that just isn't the case. We've got a lot of drug problems, substance abuse, alcoholism. A lot of my friends, I'm 60 this year, but a lot of my friends haven't got this far, and a lot of them died in the 30s because of deindustrialisation. People always say, "Oh, what about the environment if you reindustrialise?" I say, "What about my environment? I've hardly got any friends left." So what we need is a government here, and we've never ever been able to tick at the ballot box and have a government that would reindustrialise. We can chase Thatcher back and say, "Oh, she shut the pits." Yes, that's a fact. We know all we've got the data in on that. We know what happened. And the Labour Party were quite sympathetic in certain cases locally. They would come and say, "Oh, Labour Party against this pit closure and everything." But we've never had anybody who stood up until now and said, "Look, let's tick for us at the ballot box and we'll reindustrialise." Let the people around here make things. That's what they're good at.
Yeah, look, fantastic. Well, Pip and I are going to have a bit of a longer chat. Like I said, I've got my live show 9 to 11 p.m. this evening from this area, so you're going to hear a lot more about this. This is what we're all about, really, getting out into these places that I think the establishment media have forgotten. Let's talk about how we can make these places better, eh? Back to you in the studio.
Lovely stuff, Patrick. And don't forget, Patrick will be there all day live today, and will be broadcasting his own show from there this evening.
Indeed. Well, moving on now, the Minister for Women and Equalities, Bridget Phillipson, has said that ECHR single-sex guidance will not apply to workplaces.
This comes after she met with Jennifer Mele, the nurse who was suspended by the NHS for the crime, apparently, of misgendering a trans prisoner.
Well, Jennifer Mele is with us in the studio now. Jennifer, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's go back to the start. I think it was May 2024 when there was this incident in the hospital. Tell us what happened.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Yes, the incident occurred almost nearly 2 years ago, on the 22nd of May, 2024. When we had this patient from prison.
Yeah.
He had 2 prison guards, with hands in chains, both his hands and his feet. And apparently this patient had been really very disruptive. And a colleague of mine came and really very shaken and very upset. And she looked very scared. And she said, "Jennifer, this patient wants to self-discharge. Can you help?" And I said, okay, as a nurse in charge, it was my duty to come and support her. So I said, "Have you called the doctor already?" And she said, "Yes." So we went around with her, and luckily enough, the doctor had phoned. So I spoke to the doctor on the phone, and I referred to the patient, and I said, "Mr. So-and-so would like to self-discharge. Is there anything we can do for him?" And this patient overheard me on the phone and began to say, "I'm not a man, I'm a woman." And really very angry, launching and yelling and calling me the N-word multiple times.
So he was racist abuse?
Yeah, very, and said, you know, I'm not a man, I'm a woman, began to, how about I call you this? And
out of interest, Jennifer, what was he wearing?
It was in a hospital gown.
Right.
Yes.
But it was a man?
Yes, with 2 prison guards.
Yeah.
With him, both chains and attached to him. So he really got outraged, you know, and just said, don't call me, you know, don't call me mister. And I said I was just trying to sort out your discharge with the doctor.
And how did the hospital respond to this?
It was just after, and you know, after that incident, I just politely spoke to the patient. I said, I'm more prepared to refer to you by your name, you know, but I can't refer to you as a woman. It's against my faith. And yes, that's how he actually wanted to hit me. I just launched out and being restrained back by the prison guards.
Yeah.
But I was so surprised that even after that ordeal, he decided to stay.
Yeah.
And we had quite a pleasant night. He even asked for pain relief, which I did offer. And I thought maybe that was it, but I was surprised to receive a phone call that a patient had complained of misgendering and therefore was required to produce a statement straight away because I was meant to return the following day to work. So they said, you must produce this straight away because this is now going to HR and you will be undergoing disciplinary proceedings.
And did they suspend you?
I was redeployed immediately. The following day, I returned back to work. HR got involved. And then immediately, without no assistance of my union rep, I requested for my union rep, the RCN, to support me with my statement. But, you know, they said...
Your own union wouldn't support you?
Yeah.
Even though you pay your subs and...
Yes, absolutely. It was all this when I now managed to give my statement, and even after that, I still requested for my union to look at my, you know, my evidence produced. And I received a report from the Royal College of Nursing, and saying that perhaps I need reflection. And that's all. And then after that, they couldn't get back to me.
But you were suspended and reported as a risk to the public.
Yes, yes.
Jennifer, you're not a risk to the public. You do a wonderful job. You're a nurse. You do wonderful things.
Yes, that was the proceedings of the disciplinary action.
Yeah.
So many instances, they would pressure me. If this incident were to occur again, will you still refuse to call any transgender patient by their preferred pronouns? And I said, no, this is against my belief, my faith. I can't. And
well, a man's a man, a woman's a woman.
Yeah, that's why...
The Supreme Court has told us that. You know that.
Yes, and that's the reason why they referred me to the NMC, the Nursing and Midwifery Council.
Yeah.
So who came to your support, Jennifer, to help you?
Christian Concerns and the Darlington nurses. So, you know, when I contacted them, they were very keen to hear my story. And when they heard this, so they took down my case, and with the Darlington nurses, they were a massive support, and I felt there was a glimpse of hope for me, at least, because I was very traumatized and shaken, and afraid of losing my career, because now the NMC is investigating me whether I was fit for practice as a nurse, and danger to the public for referring to a male as a man.
Yeah.
So you've now been cleared.
Yes.
Although you've still got you're taking an employment case now. But yesterday you went to meet Bridget Phillipson, the Equalities Minister, with the Darlington nurses to tell her about your experience. What did she have to say?
It was a privilege to meet Bridget, and I was hoping to hear that since September, you know, even after the Supreme Court ruling in April, that she would come up with, you know, something, you know, reliable. At least we have a plan in place. But I was so shocked to hear from her that the Equality and Human Rights Commission guidance does not apply to workplaces.
Yeah.
So it was...
So other nurses who are in the position you were in and followed exactly the same procedure you do might also still be subject to this kind of disciplinary proceeding. I mean, hopefully they won't, because they'll look at your case, but it won't necessarily protect them, will it?
It won't.
So did you feel let down by the Secretary of State yesterday?
I felt really let down by the Secretary of State, and also because we had, I can't remember her name, but she was representing West Streeting.
Yeah.
So,
Karen Smith, I think.
Karen Smith,
a junior health minister,
Yeah, so I was quite shocked that even, you know, we have the healthcare secretary there, and, you know, and they have nothing to offer for us.
Yeah. Nothing. Without your strong face, how important has your faith been to sustain you through this terrible ordeal?
It's prayer. Without prayer and trusting in Jesus and trusting in the Word of God, I would have probably been, you know, in depression, and because at times I remember the early hours I was having panic attacks, and my kids were quite afraid of me going out, because sometimes I just begin to cry, you know, and I was having those phases, but the church stepped in with prayer, families, and the support from the public, Christian concerns. So it really...
GBNews is on your side.
GBNews as well on my side. And also, you know, I've been going a lot, street preaching the Word of God, sharing the Word of, seeing people come to faith and being baptized. That really gave me joy, so kept me strong.
Well, well done, and well done for being so courageous.
I'm sorry you've been through this, because it's not right, because nurses are the great unsung angels of the NHS of Britain, and you shouldn't have been put through anything like this. They should hang their head in shame, frankly. Some horrible, violent man.
I know, and that's the sympathy.
And that's where the sympathy is. And did you get an apology from the NHS?
No, apart from the public statement they gave, I've never received any apologies.
So they've said you've done nothing wrong, but they haven't apologised for their part in it.
No, they haven't received any written report or even to my union to say that, you know, we really apologise.
And you're carrying on with nursing?
Yes, I've always loved nursing. You know, I have a very good relationship with patients. I've been invited to funerals, you know, and all sorts of, you know, events going on. And, you know, it's been my calling and my dream to be a nurse. So, and I started by volunteering, actually as a volunteer.
Right.
And I just wanted to learn the different you know, areas of nursing, so I can make a choice. You know, we have pediatric, midwifery, and all this. But I wanted, when I went in an elderly ward, and I was so happy to be able to support them with feeding, you know, with, you know, toiletries and all this.
Do you know what?
Really
if I was in hospital, I'd love you to be.
Absolutely, you are a hero, Jennifer, and we so appreciate you coming in as well. And all the best for hopefully a bright future back in this.
Now we have to read out the statement from Bridget Phillips, and I'll give you the pleasure of that.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. She said that there's no delay. This is on the HRC guidance being published. It's just the process that we are following. I don't want to get that good practice out there into... I do want to get that good practice out there into the world. What I would say, however, is that the code of practice applies to services and associations. It doesn't apply to the workplace regulations. So that really is a matter for the NHS and how they intend to uphold their responsibilities as an employer.
No guidance from the government. And a spokesman for Epsom and St Heliers Hospital NHS Trust said racial abuse of our staff will never be tolerated, and we are sorry that she had this experience. And so are we.
Absolutely. It is extraordinary, though, that the NHS don't just do this themselves. They don't need to wait for the government.
No.
They can just have some common sense.
It is the largest employer in Europe.
Indeed.
Get on with it.
They need to have some bravery too. Well, coming up next, apparently Andy Burnham is too northern to be the Prime Minister, we've been told. We'll be going through that and
that'll
more.
rule out Carol Mele, well-known northerner. She's far too northerner to be Prime Minister. She's not even listening, of course. And Andy Williams. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
(11:27) Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Moon. We've got the panel back. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone and political commentator Andy Williams. Now, you're a great, proud Northern lass.
I am a great, proud Northern lass, yes.
Well, another great, proud Northern lass, Lucy Powell, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, no supporter of Keir Starmer, said in an interview yesterday, while Andy Burnham, King of the North, Greater Manchester MP, that may not translate so well for the whole of the country, being a Northerner. What
little bit
offended?
Well, I'm grossly offended, but I mean, Lucy Powell's reasons for saying it, I think, are very dodgy. You know, this is a woman who wants to run for Prime Minister herself.
She does.
But also, how is that going to translate when you have Angela Rayner, who also wants to run for Prime Minister?
Northern.
Who is very Northern, working-class heroine, according to everyone. So how does that translate? So maybe she's going to say the same thing about Angela Rayner, who knows? It's a stupid thing to say.
Yeah.
It's a really, you know, Andy Burnham is not right to be Prime Minister of this country, but it is not because he's Northern. It's because he doesn't have... I don't think... He doesn't have... Well, that's very important. He doesn't have a seat. But also, I don't think he has the leadership qualities. I think he's a bit like Starmer in that respect. I think he's a bit charisma minus. So there are many reasons why he shouldn't be PM, but the fact he's Northern is not one of them.
Isn't it right, Andy, as somebody who wanted a Labour government last time, the last three Labour leaders, Miliband, followed by Corbyn, followed by Starmer, all live within a bus ride of each other in metropolitan North London.
They do. They do.
I think
this,
a Northerner.
I think this thing is very overdone because they're three completely different characters. I mean, I would say you can't get more North London than Miliband. Ed Miliband is actually the person who, when people have this idea of North London dinner parties and sort of like hard left intelligentsia, that actually is Ed Miliband. Dad was a Marxist academic and so on.
Yeah, he was.
I think with the Burnham thing, two interesting things. One is that he's actually from Merseyside and has found himself more associated with Manchester, which anyone... I mean, I lived in Manchester for 4 years, went to university there. Anyone who's ever... been in contact with either of those cities knows that's a real rivalry, actually. The thing about Burnham in the north, though, for me, is that he's sort of worn his northernness as a bit of an affectation, like almost a bit of a caricature, in a way that I find quite annoying. And
really?
I wonder,
How?
Well, so, for example, he's once asked, what's your favourite biscuit? And he said chips and gravy. And it's like...
You know that's a lie, don't you?
Come on. We're like, we get it, Andy. You know, you represent the North, you're from the North. It's all just a bit...
At least he answered. Gordon Brown, when he was asked by Mumsnet what was his favourite biscuit, couldn't answer the question. And then
well,
he
we don't have a problem with that.
next day, and he came up with
We've got our own biscuits. We've got our very own biscuits.
Gordon Brown was so risk-averse he wouldn't even tell it. That's our favourite biscuit because it's very...
Oh, they're just so
very
dull.
But they keep getting stolen.
But I mean, the next thing he'll have a ferret, and he'll have a ferret down his trousers and some faggots and mushy peas won't he?
Let's hope
Andy Burnham.
Well, if we're lucky, absolutely.
Right.
So,
What about?
Northern.
Yeah. What?
Northern woman.
Have you just realised that after 30 years of knowing
is
you?
it not time that Labour had a woman leader, and it has to be a feisty Northern woman?
Always been, women light. Always, for as long as I can remember, they've been women light. They talk about supporting women, but they don't have that many women in the cabinet. And they're not terribly diverse, and they're not terribly women friendly either. Whereas the Tories, who they're always slating, were absolutely diverse and were very women oriented.
Well, Labour, yeah.
Go on, Miriam.
No, I was going to say,
You were there.
Labour in the last Parliament had more female MPs than male MPs, whereas
maybe
they've never elected a woman leader in 126 years.
I know, and I feel like we're sort of on the opposite sides of the argument from usual now, but the last time the Tories elected a woman leader, it was Liz Truss, and she's the worst in history, so I don't think it really... Does it really matter?
The Tories have always promoted women. Anyway, should we talk about...
No, they haven't. I mean, when Thatcher was Prime Minister, she didn't promote a single woman for 11 years.
Well, she only had 18 to choose from. There was a very small intake of women MPs.
Yeah.
Are we going to talk
Right, it's time, I'm afraid. Sorry,
we've
had, quite...
And she did have a woman cabinet minister. Everybody forgets that. Baroness Young, Janet Young, ran the House of Lords for a year. Atrociously.
There you go. That's you,
Well, there we go. A roundup of all the failings of all the women in politics ever. And here's your 60-second news update with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good morning. The top stories. A 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent in northwest London. In other news, the co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has claimed the UK has been colonised by immigrants. The Prime Minister responded to those comments, branding them as offensive and wrong. He's called for him to apologise. Canadian police have named the suspect in the British Columbia school shooting as 18-year-old Jesse Van Roostela. Deputy Police Commissioner Dwayne MacDonald gave an update.
We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
And the UK economy grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year, figures from the Office for National Statistics show. In response, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves says Labour has the right plan to build the economy. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me at the top of the hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Up at noon, good afternoon, Britain, with What a Treat, Tom and...
Hello.
Hello, lovely Sophie. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much.
What a treat for us, Tom.
It is, a massive treat to have Sophie here with us. But, stop. What are you saying when I'm not here?
No, very pleased to see you.
Absolutely. Busy show coming up. And, of course, we'll be looking at whether or not this country is being colonised. Now, personally, I don't think it's the right words to use, colonised.
But still.
I just think Jim Ratcliffe's got enough to worry about with United on his hands, to be honest. He needs to worry about that.
Apparently they're doing rather well on the pitch, apparently.
Well, that chap with the big hair's not managed to cut it yet, has he? So, not well enough.
That's one who had 5 games.
Is he speaking words that actually resonate with a huge proportion of this country who have seen large areas change beyond all recognition?
What have our inbox been like? Overflowing with people supporting him.
But here's the thing. Why did the Prime Minister wade in to then almost put a wedge between the Prime Minister and the electorate? I think, to me, this speaks of a Prime Minister who is in a very difficult political situation. He cares more about his very left-wing backbenchers than he does about the country.
It's all about shoring up his position with his MPs and also trying to get attention away from Peter Mandelson, his disastrous decision to put Matthew Doyle in the House of Lords, the paedophile's mate.
But his issue is then that Nigel Farage has been able to swoop in and kind of say, oh, actually, no, Labour won't do anything about this, but Reform will. And that's not really done Keir Starmer any favours.
And the thing is, we were talking about this earlier, Tom, in some inner cities, you go to certain areas, it is 70%, 75% of a particular ethnic population, and that feels like they have colonised there.
Well, this is the thing. Having a small amount of immigration is a really nice thing. Yeah. A little Chinatown area there's one or two streets, lovely. Yeah. Everyone likes a nice curry house.
I was going to say the Curry Mile in Manchester is some of the best curry we've ever had.
And traditionally, for hundreds of years, we've actually had little areas that are... But it's when you go to a place and you feel like you're in a completely different country for miles on end,
and let's face it,
that's what concerns me.
The Prime Minister said something very similar last year and then withdrew the speech 3 days later.
He did.
Yeah, and I think maybe he was burned by that experience, which is why he's come out here. But I think the problem with the word that he used is that he's making it sound like the fault of immigrants, whereas a lot of people would say it's actually the fault of governments in opening our borders, issuing our visas. Maybe that's where the...
Not having a reasonable, consensual, managed migration system of the sort of numbers we used to have that actually carried consent in this country. And instead, what is it, over the last 5 years or so, we've had 5 million? No, I can't even remember the gross number.
I don't think that's the... gross come.
Gross come is an astonishing number.
Tom, the answer is too many.
Yeah.
Well, all that's coming up at midday. Look forward to that, Tom and Sophie. But coming up next...
A bombshell poll shows guess who comes out top when going head-to-head with other political leaders. We'll tell you after this.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Cold air sitting across the north. Another wet day for many, but some bright spells across parts of the south where it is, at least for the time being, still relatively mild. Low pressure systems sitting across the UK, generating quite a bit of rain, and increasingly as the cold air moves in, we'll see a bit more snow coming in. Some brighter skies over northern Scotland, some snow showers in Shetland. Further south, we've got some rain showers. Some brighter spells now developing over southwest England and South Wales, but most areas cloudy with further rain and drizzle and some hill snow over parts of central and southern Scotland. Temperatures really struggling in parts of the east with that brisk wind coming in from the North Sea. And as that colder air moves in, we will see more and more of the rain turning to snow. Some snow flurries likely across northeastern parts of Scotland. Could well turn icy as temperatures drop through the night as well. Of course, southern Scotland, northern England, we'll see over the hills more and more snow coming in here. Higher routes likely to be affected as we go through the night and into tomorrow. Further south, more of a mishmash with rain showers and some clearer spells. But as I say, as we go through the night, a bit concerned about parts of the North Pennines, particularly to the east, where we'll see the snow really building up in some areas. Again, particularly over the hills. We could see some even down to lower levels for a time, as the whole wet weather sinks south over northern England, even into parts of North Wales. Some hill snow likely here. And things turning colder and colder with a widespread frost across Scotland. That could lead to some icy conditions wherever we've seen any showers around. Friday is then a real mishmash with rain, sleet, snow over northern England and North Wales, moving down into the Midlands. Something a bit brighter in the south initially, but then more showers. A bright, fine day for a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland, although it could be icy first thing. And temperatures only 3 or 4 degrees, still a little milder in the far south.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. 20 to 12, you're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
New research from the Farm Safety Foundation shows farmers' mental well-being has fallen to its lowest point in 4 years.
Yes, in 2024, 47 farmers died by suicide in England and Wales, and this has sparked wider discussion about the mental health crisis in farming.
Well, let's go to a lovely farm in Essex with GB News national reporter Will Godley. Will, good morning.
Well, Andrew, Miriam, good morning to you. Yeah, we are in Essex rather than the top of Scotland, despite the fact that today we are surrounded by these Highland cows. Take a look at them. They are really rather beautiful, enjoying some lovely greenery at the moment. But we're not here today to talk about Highland cows. We're here to talk about the people who look after them, British farmers. And you might think because farmers are enjoying the outside, enjoying being with animals, they might have really good mental health. But actually, new figures out this week suggest the opposite. These figures are from the Farm Safety Foundation, which has found that farmers' mental health is lagging compared to the general population. And actually, amongst farmers who are over the age of 40, it's at a 4-year low. And it's particularly worrying amongst farmers who are over the age of 60, because they have seen the biggest drop in their mental health. And historically, they are the most resilient. Well, let's try and find out why we've seen this decline in mental health. We can speak now to Chloe Lucas, the Highland cow farmer here. Chloe, what do you think is causing this drop in mental health?
I think a lot of farmers are very independent. I think they work quite independently. It's quite an isolated industry to be in, and I think the older they are, I think they don't like to complain and they just like to get on with it. So I think that's why they then have a bit of a mental health decline.
And what about the family farm tax? That's been a lot in the news recently. Do you think that's had any form of implication on mental health amongst farmers?
100%, especially I feel in the older generations. You know, they want to fight climate change. They're looking after our countryside. They're feeding the world, and all of a sudden they're worried they can't keep their farms, which means they're having to sell. And basically, buildings are being built on the site and they've given all of their heart and soul into something. The government have completely let them down.
And if people are watching and listening and wanting to help British farmers, what can people do to try and support British farming?
There's a campaign at the moment running which is Yellow Wellies. It's a Mind Your Head campaign that's been running all week. So please, if you want to, you can go online, talk to somebody from the Yellow Wellies Foundation, and then they can put you in touch with somebody who can help.
And this has all come, this campaign, after figures from 2024 saying there were 47 farmer suicides that year, a terrible number. If there are farmers watching this, listening to this, struggling, what can they do?
I mean, personally, I've struggled myself with mental health. I can see the struggles that farmers do have in the industry. Please talk, please reach out, please have that conversation and that discussion, because actually they'd realise that they're not alone, and there are people who genuinely feel the same, and they can actually get help to, you know, for what they need with regards to their mental health.
Wonderful. Well, Chloe, thank you very much for talking to us on GB News on what is a time this week when farmers across the country are encouraged to open up and talk about their mental health.
Thanks, Will. That's Will Godley. He's down on the farm in Essex, or up on the farm in Essex now. Sorry if you heard some banned language at the start of this report. This time, it wasn't me. Up next, we're going to reveal, and I think you may be surprised, which political leader came out top in a head-to-head new poll. You may be surprised. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst it's perhaps not as unsettled as it was this time last week across much of southern Europe, there's heavy rain, there's strong winds to watch out for. Lots of wet weather across Spain and Portugal through tomorrow, and across southern parts of France. Some hill snow mixed in with this. Tomorrow actually looks largely dry across much of Italy, but that wet weather will feed its way eastwards, and currently across Greece and Cyprus there's heavy thundery rain around, and some of that will continue as we go into the weekend. Elsewhere, some dry weather for many.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back.
We teased this poll. In this poll, we'd said who would be the preferred Prime Minister, done by a very good polling company called More in Common. Their director, Luke Trill, joins us now. Luke, we were surprised. Tell us more about this extraordinary poll.
So in this polling, what we did was a series of head-to-heads where we pitched two party leaders against one another in succession to see who the public would prefer of the two to be Prime Minister. So we did Keir Starmer, Kemi Badenoch, Ed Davey, Nigel Farage and Zach Polansky in a series of head-to-heads. And here's what we found. So if you look at Keir Starmer, he narrowly edges Nigel Farage, very narrowly, 51% 49. Narrowly edges Zach Polansky, 51 to 49 again. Losers to Kemi Badenoch, 62% to 38%, and Ed Davey, 60% to 40%. But what's more interesting is when you then go on to Kemi Badenoch, she actually wins all four of those head-to-heads. So, as I said, she beats Keir Starmer, she beats Nigel Farage 64-36, Ed Davey 60-40, and Zach Polansky 65-35. So in all of those head-to-heads, Kemi Badenoch is ahead. It's quite different from her party's polling, but there is a caveat, there is a small caveat that when, rather than doing it as a head-to-head, you do all five party leaders in one question and say who would you prefer. In that case, Nigel Farage comes out ahead with 21%, Keir Starmer 15, and Kemi Badenoch 15. So it actually all depends on what the choice is, and I think it's another sign that tactical voting is going to really matter at the next election. If Kemi Badenoch can make it a choice between her and Starmer and a choice between her and Farage, she might do well. If it's seen as a five-way race, Nigel Farage benefits from that fragmentation.
A year ago, Luke, I think Kemi Badenoch would have probably been last in every head-to-head.
Yeah, there's no doubt that she has had a bounce, particularly since the budget last year and some of her PMQ's performances. In fact, in her approval rating in the same poll, she's now at -10, which might not sound that impressive, but she was down in the -30s, and the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is on -50. So there's now a 40-point gap in that net approval. It's the biggest we've recorded between Kemi Badenoch and Keir Starmer. She's ahead of Nigel Farage in approval. He's closer behind. He's actually only at -13. So there's no doubt she's made an improvement. I guess the challenge for her is, can she turn that personal bounce in her approval ratings into something which drags the Conservative Party up? Because we're not seeing as much sign of that yet. It seems that, you know, for some leaders, they act as a drag on their party. In this case, it seems to be the other way around. The Conservative Party brand hasn't recovered, and that's acting as a drag on Kemi Badenoch, who is trying to pull it up.
Luke, and very quickly, what interested me about the digging into this information was that within the Green Party itself, they weren't particularly keen on Zach Polanski as Prime Minister.
No, so this was Green 2024 voters. Actually, only 29% picked Zach Polanski as their preferred choice. Of course, Zach Polanski, since the election, has taken the party in a different direction. So lots of those will have been the sort of people who voted Green in more rural areas. He's obviously pitching a younger, more urban crowd now. But it does show there is that split in sort of Green supporters and what they want.
Luke Trill from More in Common, thank you so much. Absolutely fascinating, as always. Do come on again.
There are so many polls now, which is what's caused the peril, in some sense, for Keir Starmer. Because Labour MPs can look at these numbers and they are all uniformly bad for Keir Starmer, aren't they?
But what they are, but I think what Luke points out is that it's so split. You know, in just a few years ago, we were in a two-horse race. It's not like that anymore, and it's going to completely change how people vote at the next election, I think. There'll be so much tactical voting. It'll be quite hard to call.
Really will be. Well, that's it. That was a very interesting poll. That'd be good, cheery news for Kemi Badenoch. Not so cheery for Keir Starmer. I saw another poll the other day giving Keir Starmer an approval rating of -71.
Oh, dear. That is terrible. That is a bad mark, definitely.
It really is. That's it from Britain's Newsroom. That's it from both of us.
Yeah.
Up next, Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Sophie.
With growth on the floor, we'll be hearing from the Chancellor of the Exchequer. How does she explain this 0.1% growth in the last quarter of last year, which constitutes, per capita, a technical recession?
Indeed, and we'll be getting the inside scoop on the alleged collapsing ministry of Sir Keir Starmer. We'll have the inside scoop with Tim Shipman. That's all to come up. But first, here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update coming to you from the Met Office. I've said this before quite recently, but there will be plenty of wet weather around for many of us, albeit a bit of sunshine in some places too. We're starting the day on quite a cloudy note. There's a band of rain running from Northern Ireland through Wales towards some central southern parts of England, and there's also showery bursts of rain coming in from the east across parts of northeast England and eastern Scotland as well. But away from these areas, there could be some sunshine breaking through towards the southwest and also across some northern parts of Scotland. Here we do also have some colder air, so temperatures are only getting to highs in the mid-single figures really, but towards the southwest could just about get into double figures in a few places yet again. So a cold feel for sure as we go towards the end of the day across Scotland. There will also be a fair few showers coming in, and with that cold air, well, those showers are going to quite readily fall as sleet or snow over modest higher ground. Further south we have a wet picture through this evening across Northern Ireland and across northern England. Also hill snow likely here over the Pennines northwards. I'm expecting a fair few centimetres of snow to build up as we go through tonight and into tomorrow. And meanwhile, across central southern England and Wales, well, there'll be outbreaks of rain pushing their way through. And that's the thing that we take overnight, really. We have a lot of clouds, some outbreaks of rain, some hill snow across central parts. Southern areas, not really seeing much winteriness, just a few outbreaks of rain. Across the north, it's going to be cold. There'll be a few showers, but also a harsh frost, with temperatures here dropping several degrees below freezing. Most places towards the south holding up above freezing here. Then as we go through tomorrow? Well, a fair amount of showery rain, sleet and hill snow across central parts of the UK. Showers continue across some parts of northern and eastern Scotland and northeast England, but actually across the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland, plenty of sunshine to be had, but a chilly feel with temperatures quite suppressed. And even further south, temperatures likely to be a little bit lower than today.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for 2 people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 12th of February. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Sophie Reaper.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming into... I mean, the UK is being colonised.
Sir Jim Ratcliffe speaks out and the PM demands he apologises. Downing Street says the remarks risk dividing the country as the row grows between the Prime Minister and one of Britain's most high-profile business figures.
Elsewhere, the Chancellor promised growth, but the latest figures show the economy limped to the end of last year. So has Labour really got a plan to fire things up, or are the critics right to say that the strategy simply isn't there?
Yes, here in Sussex, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, putting a brave face on those growth figures. I also asked her about her comments that a closer relationship with the European Union was the biggest prize. We'll bring you what she said in response shortly.
And Patrick Christys heads to East Durham to hear directly from residents about the challenges facing the area.
Absolutely so much going on here in East Durham. We're going to be talking about immigration, social cohesion, crime. But on the very week that the government is celebrating National Apprentice Week, I'm afraid to say this factory behind me here is closing down with the loss of around 400 jobs. We are here to shine a light on one of Britain's many forgotten towns.
Meanwhile, Ed Miliband's net zero drive could trigger a financial crash. That's according to a former government scientific advisor who warns the cost of overhauling the entire grid risks sparking a fierce backlash from households and businesses.
And a new campaign launches this morning, encouraging farmers to break their silence on mental health.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. And Sophie, delight to have you here in the studio.
Stop. I always love getting to come on with you, Tom.
Yeah, no, it's because normally sort of you're down the line somewhere, either outside of a courtroom or...
wet,
yes.
somewhere raining, somewhere windy, somewhere cold.